Okay, deep breathing. So how does everybody feel? A lot of the been talking a lot about how to start to move your torso and the legs. So if you keep that you know and keep that in your forefront of your mind, and then as you go through the movements, you try to get your body to be more involved. It does take some time to kind of separate the hand movements from what's totally um, isolated, and how to get your body kind of driving those movements. So the more you get your torso involved in rotating, then you'll start to connect to the lower part of your body, and your legs just have to, find the direction. I mean, even in the other classes with Kung Fu, we talk a lot about steering your feet. We did a lot about, a lot with that with footwork, about turning to the 45-degree corner, because essentially all martial arts works in this octagon. So in this form, you have your corners, and there's only a few of them. That's the two heel kicks, and then you have your corners for Jade Lady, work shuttle, and in between there you have the turning. So the turning sometimes not emphasized, but when we do the repulse the monkey, and you don't see the turning, you turn to there to the front, and then you turn to the other side. So this is your oblique, and then that allows you to stay consistent with that rear angle position. And even this one, when you're in single whip the second time, if you kind of step up and kind of settle, and then fold the elbow before you come out into that palm strikes face. In other words, when you finish this position, that's your final position, and you're like this, then you're going to fold this elbow and you sink. And then you come out, and then you settle into it. Because, it blends together as one, continuous action. But when you break it down, it still appears that it's kind of broken, and then you're doing that. But actually, you'll smooth that out. But what you try to do when you go through that phase of breaking it into one more transition, one additional motion, or one additional sinking, then it lets your body recognize that you can't rush through it. Because a lot of times you just pass through and pass through. It appears to be smooth and seamless, but there isn't that little bit of finalization that really gets your sensory system really aware that that's happening. And then over time, it enters the subconscious behavior. When every time you do a movement, you'll have that little bit of relaxation at the end of the motion. So it's, because practice is training, and training brings results from frequency and going there often. Because without going there often, the tendency is, in a way, forgetting. If you don't do something over and over again, you forget to do it. It's just something that's not in the forefront of your mind, because it's a little bit behind your, in your thought. So, just like I picked up his jacket the other time, right? I left, I reminded him that I had it, but I forgot about it. Now I have to go look for it. So when I go home, it's going to be in the forefront of my mind that someone has that jacket. But anyways, that's just how the brain works. You know, as people get older, the stuff gets a little cluttered because of the cobwebs. I talked to this guy that does some retirement stuff. So he said, "Oh yeah, we talked a few months ago, but being the age we are, I really don't remember what we talked about." What I asked him was, I have a little IRA. But at 70, you're supposed to draw at 70 and a half, but they changed the rules. If you're still working, you don't have to draw from it, and you don't have to draw based on the age. And 72, I think, is the age. Um, so I I was kind of reminding him about that because he had told me that anyways, these are the experts, right? Anyways, let's go through. You want to try that one more time? Okay. Okay, I'll move over here so I'm closer to Irene. Right, Irina. Fan to the back. Parry and punch. And cross arms. Leopard and tiger springs to mountain. And the closing. Okay. Deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, go to 42. You want to shift this way a little? Yeah. Yeah. So I guess right now it's between this camera and that camera. We don't use that a whole lot because it's pretty long. So Um, so we actually shift this way. We can all be in that. Okay, ready? Begin. 42. Okay, good. Okay, deep breathing. Inhale. So we talk about that toe-heel relationship. So it's important that, when you soften your feet, especially, when we're standing and we're doing this, and you kind of like pressing and lifting and pressing and lifting. When you shift your weight and you soften the foot, you kind of lead, touch down, and then you sort of soften. As the weight transfers, it's like it's moving through the soles of your feet until your feet kind of just presses down, right? So that's how your feet work, as sort of imprinting your foot palm in the ground, right? So when you push with the hand, like we talked about last week, you soften the wrist, and then you let it kind of reach its destination by seating the wrist. So you kind of seat your ankle. So because we finished the form and we're here, right, we just closed the form. Then when we shift the weight, you have to soften that closing too. So opening and closing, both of those times, you're starting off, you're here, so then you reach out and you're here. So when you move, if you're going to go like that, then the knee, if it goes out, it creates like an arc to come to here, right? So that makes it look much softer than if you just go from here and do that. Your leg is not really engaging when you just go like that. But when you go like this, then your leg actually created a dimension of movement that really becomes a little bit more filling in the way it looks. When it comes to competition forms or performances, it's not so much of the technical stuff that a lot of people watching, especially spectators, don't understand. They don't even know what you're doing. They don't know, one secret from the other. But they're looking for the aesthetics. Right? So the aesthetics is what is captured by the eye from someone watching. So you can see sort of the gracefulness and how everything looks as a line, and it looks good. And then if you, regardless of how, technical it is as far as the stuff that we're talking about, if everyone kind of looks the same, then that's what's really, part of that image that people pick up, from, you know, from a spectator's point of view. Most people watching, unless you're really, inspired them, they're not really interested in actually doing it. It's like going to the circus. How many people leave there wanting to stand up at the, walking a tightrope or doing some trapeze stuff. Some young people might be inspired, but most people go there to watch a show. So when we do our open houses, when we choreograph a skit or do whatever it is, it's really for the spectator, and the appeal of that, that is just for the experience. So the same when we do our forms, we try to, appeal to the audience, and if you're competing, you're appealing to the judge. So that's kind of what it is. Yeah. All right. So you want to go through that again one more time? Yeah. You got a question? Yeah. Aesthetics. Yeah. Should be down. Should be down. Yeah. 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 So just taking that position. Okay. We're going to use her as an example, right? So you go to Golden Cockerel twice, and let's see how that looks. You do those two movements, and then we'll see what we can do to improve your movement. Okay. Aside from balance, we know if you lose your balance, this could be some improvement there. But what's it kind of missing? Can anyone see what might be missing? Okay. This is to see if you understand what's missing, because you may be doing the same thing, right? So, hey, what do you see her doing that maybe is not, huh? Uh-huh. Okay. So, Arthur, you want to make a as high as you can. So, um, simply because if you stop it halfway, the movement's not complete. I mean, the goal is to complete your movements. So you have to complete it to the best of your ability. That's the end product. But if you have, some compromising parts that don't work to do that, then that's the compromise that's there. So ultimately, like anything, if you're in a, sh- a split, you would say, so how far down should you go? Most people can't do a perfect split, but if you want a perfect split, it's flat, right? So that's what you would go strive for in a split. Well, that's the functionality of the motion. But when you go into a position, you would want this knee up as high as you can, regardless of what you're doing with it, because it's really getting your body form to align. That means your hip goes to an extreme position, and it's as high as you can get it. So at the height of your position, then your body should feel like it's lifting. If your leg is not completely going up, then there's a little bit of pulling you down. So you can't go to your most relaxed state if you're in a state of compromise, because you're resisting the upwardness by the verticalness. So yeah, yeah. So yeah, so you have to reach your peak, the peak of your, the physical side of that. And then, how about Rob? What did you see? What did you see that could maybe, because this is maybe some sink more, the, the hands and the legs. Then anything that you could, how about Pegrid? Anything that you see that, because this is a posture, and we have to understand each and every posture simply because if you practice it, you have to have a goal, some kind of an objective, right? And then, how about mine? Anything you see? He says it's perfect. That's a perfect 10 out of 5. That's what he said. No, no. Okay, so like we're going to take some concepts from what we just saw, right? So first, what's the movement before that? What's the movement before right? You're in the downward posture where you're scooping up. Where are we in that? Just prior to that movement, where are we? In a downward posture, right? So both times false forms, you have a downward posture. So if we're in the downward posture, we're coming up. That means everything has to be lifting, reaching the peak of your movement. So when we're here, we come down, and then everything goes to vertical, and then we start to go up, right? Now when we go up, one of the things that should be happening is if we look, oh, maybe I'll use this mirror. When you go up, your elbow goes down. You see, your elbow should sink. Don't just lift and then fold the elbow. Sink the elbow and let the arm fold. So the way you're moving your arm is not this. The way you're moving your arm is sinking the elbow and folding like this. So then your hand and the legs are going to be moving like this. Now when this goes up and this folds over and presses down as if it's going down, the lower hand is actually starting to press. So the movement between this movement and this movement becomes splitting. So if you don't connect the two sides, you don't have the upper-lower relationship. See what I mean? So the hands should be coming down, and then when you go down, it comes up, and it goes down, and it comes up. And you look for the straightness. But because we're going down and sinking, we have a downwards of the body. Then we lift the back. We go down, and we lift the back. because you have to get the vertical spine. So that all requires some coordination, timing, relaxation, and the idea that movements have relationships. When this goes down, this goes up. When this goes up, we lift. So this is no different from stork flap 6 and lifting. It's no different from, when we go to cross hands and we lift, this hand and this hand have to be connected. So when we do form, although there's functionality to action, the idea is to build the body mechanics and the movement. Because functionality is just to be there to block it if you're using your leg. But the idea is you could block, and the integration of that movement is not going to be the same in action. When your action is like this, or your action is like this, or like this, it has to be driven by this motor skill program that has been developed in your brain. And that relationship is what we're working with. And we're working within the self, right? We're working with, the parameters of what we have, as the physical apparatus. So we have to work as if there's nothing else coming into it. So the kick that's coming around or the punch that's coming isn't relevant at this point, because what you're doing is working, sort of internalizing the movement and then building that sort of intrinsic action. And then finally you'll have that feeling of movement, because it is an understanding of a concept. Now it's funny, or it's different that when we do the Yang style, it's on the same side. When we do the Wu style, it's kind of opposite, because there's a lot more twisting, and the leg is in a different position. So all those things has to happen. And that's kind of a simple movement, because we do it in all the forms. But it's very unique that they're coming sweeping up and then lifting. Now, the toe down position is like pointing your finger down, right? And then it goes up. So you lift your toe up. When you plant your foot, you have to actually flatten the ankle. So if you were doing lifting like this, in the chin style, they lift the foot up as an action to create action there. And then they relax it. Then they go down, but they relax the ankle. They're not really stomping with a dead force. So when we stomp, it's relaxed. Because if you don't relax your foot and stomp, then the shock actually goes into your leg, and then it'll injure your knee. So that's why we have to understand, how this and this is working, because your feet are like your hands, your elbows are like your knees, and your shoulders are like your hips. So because they're similar, they're actually, working together as a unit. So when I sink my elbows, I bend my knees. When I straighten my legs, I straighten my arms. When I lift here, 45 degrees, I lift here, and then I'm turning, and then the body's turning at the same time. So that relationship that I talk about is building over time. Whatever movements we do, whether it's Kung Fu or Tai Chi, the concepts are similar, they're compatible. So then they end up falling into a category of movement. Diagonal flying, cross hands, 45 degrees, high hoop, in or out. So the high hoop is here. The high hoop is here. So the high hoop is here in Fu Hawk. The high hoop is here in Stork Flap the Wing. The low hand is here. The low block is here. The low block is here. The low block is here. It's brush, knee, and push. It's Hunga's double tiger. So, once you fall into this level of understanding, then it doesn't really matter what the style is. You fall into a category of structures. and movements. So once you have that understanding, it's across the board. You could use these theories and concepts and learn any style, as long as you understand the fundamental idea that the body's working in a certain way. And then your linkages between the movement would be varied based on a minute adjustment of timing. So while we're going forward and then we reset the vertical, it's kind of a counterbalancing. When we lift our hand and not tip over, then it's because we're retracting, finding center, and then blending it here. So we have that. See, so the body is constantly going through that kind of a body mechanics because, along with learning the integration of your body, we're also learning the body mechanics of the movement, which actually teaches you how to use your strength and how not to use your strength to create the levers and fulcrums and the pivot points and, the sort of the moments that are acting on your body. But it's different, in a sense that we respond to it. Someone like Arthur would build something so it accommodates it. But we're actually working on our body to find out what that is. We don't add any weight to it. And that's why everybody's unique. Because everybody's arm is a little bit different in the makeup. So the type of force that you're generating or how much it takes to lift it and, all of that's involved is really your personal feeling and experience. So anyways, we're going to bow. Ready? Up. So that was Golden Cockroach. So next week,